Today I want to talk about a funny but actually a very important topic. You've probably heard people say that the entry barrier for RTS games, and especially for StarCraft 2, is pretty high. Almost every other game feels way simpler by comparison. In StarCraft 2, you need to learn and remember so much just to play your first game effectively. You constantly have to watch the map, scout what your opponent is doing, and all of that puts a lot of pressure on the player. And that's why StarCraft 2 has this interesting concept called ladder anxiety. Yes, this exists in many ranked games, but only in StarCraft 2 does it affect so many players so deeply that it sometimes stops them from actually enjoying this game. So let's take a closer look at this issue. Ladder anxiety is a unique feeling that mostly affects new players. I have over 10,000 matches in StarCraft 2, but I still remember my first games. Well, not the exact build orders or the matches themselves, to be honest, but I clearly remember something else. My heart racing, the stress, even a bit of nervousness and sweaty palms. And it felt strange. Why was I reacting like this? I'm just playing a video game for fun. I'm not in a tournament, and honestly, I didn't really care about winning or losing because I was a newbie player. But if you think about it, StarCraft 2 puts pressure on a very specific part of human psychology. You are constantly surrounded by the unknown. You have your base, the eerie music, this huge fog of war, and somewhere out there, on the other side of the map, your opponent is doing something mysterious. Maybe something terrifying. And the human brain hates uncertainty. And in StarCraft 2, it's literally in every single game you play. You don't know who, how, or when your opponent is going to attack you. You might think that this stress could be fixed simply by scouting. But honestly, even in Grandmaster, I still feel a tiny bit uncomfortable when my overlord flies toward the enemy base. I'm always relieved when I finally see their wall and I realize it's not proxy barracks, it's not cannon rush, or some ZVZ one base all-in. But why don't beginners or lower league players get the same relief? As a Grandmaster player, I know what to expect even with very little information. The higher the level, the more predictable the ladder becomes. People follow the meta because it's just the most efficient way to play, so they play pretty much the same strategies. But for a new player, it's totally different. You can send a worker to scout, see a few buildings, and still have no idea what's going on. Sure, you get a general idea, but all the important questions still go unanswered. It's like knowing you have a flight today, but not knowing where you are flying or what time you're supposed to take off. That's what scouting can feel like to a new player. Back when I just started playing, I even had a dream once where an Ultralisk rushed into my base at the 2-minute mark. I didn't even have my pool ready, and I just woke up angry thinking, how was that even physically possible? But that dream perfectly reflects what many players feel: fear of some unknown threat that might exist, and the difficulty of evaluating what's actually dangerous. And on top of that, sometimes scouting doesn't help at all. It actually makes things worse. Not every player behaves logically. Maybe your opponent really is building 3 Stargates and he's going for Sky Toss, but that doesn't mean that he won't show up at your base with 20 zealots just because he decided to do that. And let's not forget, StarCraft 2 has invisible units. They show up out of nowhere and start tearing through every base at once, instantly throwing you into panic mode. It's like insects sneaking up into your kitchen at night, or those terrifying Australian spiders running around your house. Danger could be just anywhere. This constant uncertainty, combined with not always understanding what's happening, puts the player under non-stop tension. And I think this is exactly why so many people end up playing timing attacks and cheeses more often. When you take the initiative, it feels like you are the one who is controlling the battlefield and the general flow of the game. And if you're the one dictating the pace, you can avoid most of the unknowns and maybe even scare your opponent instead. By the way, Zerg is the most comfortable race in this regard. You've got creep, overlords, and arguably the best map control in the entire game. You almost always know when an attack is coming, and it's much harder to catch you off guard. You might argue, but games like Counter-Strike have ladder anxiety too, and yeah, losing a round while your dead teammates are watching and scrutinizing you can feel pretty scary. That's definitely a thing, and I think this is a problem for every ranked game. You just don't want to lose your points. Team games come with extra pressure and the fear of letting people down, but you also have way more information to work with, and let's be honest, it's also very easy to blame a teammate for everything that went wrong. The issue with StarCraft 2 is that it's an extremely difficult and fast game. The punishment for mistakes is brutal. Your body and nervous system go into high alert mode, which triggers all sorts of unpleasant reactions. Even when I stream or play small tournaments, my hands would sweat, my heart rate would go up, and I would feel some chills down my back. Of course, those feelings are quite normal, and I won't say that they are annoying or something like that, but they exist because the game demands so much from you every second and you're constantly under pressure. And on top of that, you are alone. Some people enjoy being on their own, but generally speaking, we feel more psychologically safe when we have others around us. It's just comforting knowing that someone has your back. When you play alone, the entire responsibility for losing falls on you, and a lot of people do not like this feeling. Some people just love the sense of control, but that's not something that you can achieve in every StarCraft 2 game. I have that issue with flying. I really dislike flying because I lose that sense of control inside an airplane, but it's life and at one point you just have to let it happen, and I think the same is actually true for StarCraft 2. You will never be prepared for 100% of things that will happen, but you just gotta go with it. And I think another problem is that our brain just hasn't evolved fast enough to keep up with the modern world. We tend to see our StarCraft 2 rank as a reflection of our social status. Winning feels like honor, respect, success, everybody's gonna love you and cheer you. Losing feels like a hit to your pride, almost like being mocked by the rest of your tribe, or maybe just by the people that you respect. As, if you are being kicked out in shame, if you are being ostracized. But in reality, it's just imaginary numbers on the screen that don't matter at all, but for our brain it can be difficult to contemplate. And that's why many people have gaming addiction. People think that, okay, if I'm really great at Call of Duty or StarCraft 2 or any other game, I'm actually good in real life. And for our brain, it's sometimes difficult to see the difference between the real life and the video game. And I think that's the key to freeing yourself from this feeling. You have to remember that you are playing for yourself, not for anyone else. You have absolutely nothing to prove. Your rating doesn't really reflect your skill either. Instead, just focus on what you want to get out of this game. Maybe you're here for fun, maybe you wanna try new build orders and this will make you stronger in the long run, even if you lose some points now. StarCraft 2 and its ranking system do not define your life, your personality, or your worth. And the same goes for team games as well. Who cares what slur someone calls you? A video game is almost certainly not the core of your identity, and you're much more than your skill in StarCraft 2, Dota 2 or any other game. But can you get rid of that ladder anxiety forever? I think only if nothing is at stake. I have absolutely zero pressure playing any game nowadays, but I think it's totally normal to feel a bit nervous on stream or at a tournament because, you are putting on a show for people and you want to try your best. Even after many years, I still feel a little pressure, but sometimes it's actually enjoyable. You kind of feel alive at that moment because you feel that little stress, and it's kind of good for me, I would say. But if you are playing solo and just for yourself, there is no real reason to be stressed out. With experience, the fear of the unknown fades away because you start to truly understand what's going on in the game, and at one point this feeling almost goes away completely. That's all from me. Have you ever experienced ladder anxiety? Thank you for watching, and check out my story about Bly, the greatest Zerg cheeser. Good luck, and see you next time!